Women, we are unique. And when we start supporting each other the way women in the Bible supported each other, the women who walked with Jesus. So instead of demonizing women, let us look into their strength. We are able to get along well with each other when I understand and you understand my strength. Because when we balance our strength and our weaknesses, we will not fight each other. We will know that we are all human beings. The older we get, the more sweeter we get, the more juicy we get, the more the creative juices flow out of us, because we have a responsibility to empower the generation that is ahead of us, that is within our level, and that is behind us. And I also encourage women to do what they can do. Every woman has a gift to unleash. And especially in the age of social media, your legacy will live beyond you.
Good afternoon. This is Dolly Ochola from Kavaya's Daughter Speaks. And today I'm very honored, very honored and very privileged to have Beatrice Ndura with us. Beatrice is a mental health coach and a professional counselor. She's a blogger, a podcaster, an author, and a motivational speaker. I have known Beatrice for like many years. I first met her because she had been invited to New Jersey to speak at an event, and I've seen her speak and preach many more times after that. And I remember one time she had volunteered to work with our youth, and to just pour into their lives. And we met at that event. This was more than 10 years ago. And she was asking me who I am, and I introduced myself, although I had seen her many times before that. And she said, okay, I'd like to have your contact. And I said, okay. I told her, you know what? I want to be a therapist like you. So in her phone, I typed in future therapist. I don't know if she remembers that. And then I put my number. So this is Beatrice Ndura. She's been very instrumental in the mental health field. She's been very instrumental in uplifting people of the Kenyan community and others, not just the Kenyan community. And so, Beatrice, I am very honored to have you with us.
Thank you, Dory. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And I am delighted to connect with you once again. And I believe God maintains the divine connections that he brings in our way. And let me say congratulations for your new podcast.
Thank you.
This is the way to go. I am confident that through this podcast, you will empower people from all walks of life. The older we get, the wiser we become, and we become a well of resources. And I think that is who you are.
Oh, thank you so much. That is very uplifting hearing it from you, because I feel like you're a pro. So that is very nice. Thank you so much. So Beatrice, to begin with, I want you to tell us something about you that we don't know.
Okay. My name is Beatrice Ndura. I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania with my family. I have 2 boys. They are married. And I have my husband with me. And I have 2 grandchildren.
Oh, congratulations.
I am in a stage of my life where I feel more powerful, more resourceful, more than any other stage in my life. And I have always desired, and I try to do it all the time, to encourage women. The older we get, the more sweeter we get, the more juicy we get, the more the creative juices flow out of us, because we have a responsibility to empower the generation that is ahead of us, that is within our level, and that is behind us. And I also encourage women to do what they can do. Every woman has a gift to unleash. And especially in the age of social media, your legacy will live beyond you.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
So could you tell us something that we don't know?
I love the Lord Jesus Christ.
Okay.
That's my testimony.
Okay.
And I've had a very rough journey throughout my life. But I am now in a stage where I celebrate what I have been through, all the pain,
Mm-hmm.
all the struggles, all the uncertainties that I have been through. I have shared far and wide. I'm an open book. I have shared my history of being abused
Mm-hmm.
by my mother,
Okay.
those deep, intense wounds, and
Yes.
also being sexually abused.
Okay.
So I have gone through the physical, the verbal, the sexual abuse.
Okay.
When you carry that huge burden for a greater part of your life, it is not easy, because
Mm-hmm.
you can be what your abusers programmed you to be, and you can choose to reach a point in your life where you say, no, enough is enough. I gonna live for myself. I gonna work on myself. And I tell people, my pain, my experiences is what motivated me to go to graduate school and take my master's in mental health counseling, so that I can walk in a path where I feel I am qualified from my own experiences. I am qualified from the point of having a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I am also academically qualified to address the issues that I address. So that's how I chose to empower myself to heal, so that I can empower others and assist them to heal.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your childhood, just a brief history of your childhood. And I'm particularly interested in the traumas you faced, because I know that most of us have traumas. They might be big or small, but we have trauma. And your story is very inspirational. So how was your childhood?
Well, I come from a family where I am the firstborn, and I am the only girl in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I loved many things in my life, but one thing that shaped me was reading. Uh, my dad used to, number one, when my dad got home in the evening, he had to read the newspaper for the day for me, and I would ask him all the questions, because I am a talker. I am curious, and so I like knowing. And then my dad would sit me on his lap, and he would read books for me. And so my dad introduced me to the world of books. I
Okay.
fell in love with books, and even today I'm still in love with the books. I cannot do without reading.
Okay.
And I would say in my struggles, I found a lot of comfort in reading. And I remember when I learned my ABCD, and then I learned this is a book, this is a cat. My
Mm-hmm.
dad brought me the books to my level, and I started reading and reading, and I still read up to this day. So reading was a therapeutic tool for me in my struggles with my issues. And from a tender age, being the firstborn, by then I would not understand what I was going on. My mom um, was a very beautiful, intelligent, outgoing woman. In fact, I have taken after her personality. Because when we get abused by our parents, we just want to build and heap everything on the abuse. But I like separating the two. This is the abuse, and this is
Mm-hmm.
how she empowered me as
Mm-hmm.
as a woman. It was like what they say, love, hate, war. I don't know what to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my mom used to struggle a lot with her health, and many months should be admitted at Aga Khan Hospital. And Dory, by then nothing was known about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
They would go and say, this is the problem. They would do surgery. This is this. A mixture of everything. But anyway, to be brief, let me say this. I became like the caretaker when I was very, very young, taking care of my 3 brothers and mommy when she was not feeling well, and when the household help would run away or things like that. But my mom's personality was this. She was a very intelligent woman. She was full of energy and empowerment. But when a season would come and she would be down for months and months and hospitalized and come back home, and nobody knows what is going on in her life. She was very abusive. And I was abused more than all my siblings because she did not know how to stop it. Even in my adulthood, I have the marks of my mother in my body where she could, dig into my flesh with her teeth and beat me and leave scars like in my arms and those kind of things. And then when she came back to her senses, she did not know how to say sorry, but she would buy me the gifts.
Okay.
And so this continued throughout my life. People were thinking maybe it is power struggle, maybe it's because I'm strong-willed like her. We were 2 strong-willed women. And I remember this story. There were months my mom would not get out of bed for a month, 2 months. She was that sick. And I remember the women, women are talkers.
Yes.
I overheard them gossiping my mom. And they would say that my mother pretends she's sick and stays in bed for a month, 2 months, and they feel sorry for me because I'm the one who carries the burden of everybody, including my brothers. I was sharing that sometimes with my dad, and I told him it really, really hurt me. Like I said, I am my mother's daughter because I'm a go-getter. I have a strong personality. I have my high confidence, glory to God, my self-esteem. All those things I have inherited from her. But guess what? I could not enjoy them when I was carrying the burden of oozing emotional wounds and mental torture. So let me stop there. I have
Okay. Yes, and I'm just thinking, you have a mother who is mentally ill, and so I'm guessing that during the times when she would be in bed for months, that would be the depressive state, and then she would go to the like manic state where she's active and everything is normal. Is that what would happen?
That's what would happen. And when she bounces back, she's this woman full of energy, full of love. But anyway, even when she was not in her maniac or depressive situation, she was still abusive to me. She loved me on one hand and abused me on the other hand. And I was a fighter because I would, when I struggled, I would go to my grandfather and I would walk. I come from close to the Dagoretti Kikuyu area.
Okay.
And my grandfather lived in Kabete.
Okay.
I would, as a small girl, I would walk those ranges and go to my grandfather and I pour my heart to him. My grandfather was my therapist. My dad used to work very, very hard for the family and everybody. And anyway, even if I said I feel I'm being abused or whatever, who cared? It was not known in those days. And I always, the wise words of my grandfather, I remember them even up to this day. And I think my grandfather was worried that I would think about, committing suicide. And one time he told me something very profound. Never take your own life because of somebody. You can go to Tanzania and put a pin on your nose and wear buibui and call yourself Fatuma, and life will continue. That was deep, very, very profound. But all the same, I was a fighter, because now when I grew up, I'm working, I'm in college, and I'm working, and the abuse continued. I would also like try to take measures, which was like, no. So when you are in that kind of pain, and now I'm talking the part, now I'm a grown woman and I'm working, but I still stayed at home because, we are closer to Nairobi. So staying at home is easier. And my parents also would not let me go. Do you know, we find negative ways to soothe our pain. But because that pain has been sitting in us for a long, long time, we project it on situations, on other people. We are angry. We are fighters. If we are provoked, we will do things that are not right. And also, unknowingly or knowingly, we find a coping skill. And for me, now I'm working. I've finished college. I'm working. I developed a way of coping, and that was
Drinking. Okay.
That was drinking, and a don't care attitude, because deep in me, I was hurting, and I cried, wishing that my mother would apologize for some of the things, she did to me. And she did great things. The other hand, torture.
Yeah.
But torture is more painful.
Yes.
It is more painful.
Yes.
And I fell in love with my husband. My story is so long, so I'm just trying to do a little here and there.
Yes.
So I fell in love with my husband, and we got married. And I would bring in fights because I'm still wounded.
Yes.
And he would look at me and say, I love you, but I think there is something that bothers you. And you know what? Our abuses, or the abuse that we go through, it is a secret. It is our secret. We don't want people, to know it. But now,
yes,
it brings a lot of triggers in situation, because just a small trigger, we will fight.
So before you got married, let's go back a little bit. So now you're growing up, you're a little girl, you're being abused, and then your mother is sick for months at a time. When all this is happening, there's people gossiping about your mother and her situation, right?
Yeah.
And then now you are put in the position to defend your brothers and pretty much take care of the household, which is what we call being parentified in mental health. Now, did you have anybody other than your grandfather who was far away, so he could not come and live with you, right? Or check on you every day or every other day because it was just not practical? Did you have anyone around where you lived or a relative who stepped in and said, hey, something is wrong here?
No. Sometimes, like we always had house help, unless when they quit. There were some who were nice, and they would sympathize with me. But I wish you understand my mother's personality. You don't joke with her. You don't come to tell her what to do.
Okay.
And also, now the question you're asking me, I think is a question that needs to be could be handled well in the 21st or in the century that we are in. Those days, abuse was normal to people. Wives were beaten. And also just remember this, also my brothers were abused, but I'm the one who was severely abused. There were times you could be depressed in class, and the teacher would try to explore, but you don't talk about that thing. But I remember one time, because now I went to a boarding high school, I went back tortured and terrorized until two of my teachers called me.
Okay.
They wanted to know what's going on because I could not concentrate in school. I'm far away from home, but all I did was cry, but I also told them the story of what happened. But remember those days, people did not have the skills that we have today. Books were not written the way they are written today.
Yes.
There was no YouTube. There were no podcasts where people would be empowered. And anyway, is it a big deal? It wasn't a big deal, but it was a big deal for people like us who are strong-willed.
Yes.
And also remember, we were not only abused at home, but also in
school. Yeah.
Where do you go to report? And also remember, the way I am saying she had mental health issues. Nobody knew there were mental health issues. Even me, I did not know there were mental health issues. But the older I got, I realized there's something that is not right here.
Okay. So now you're growing up, you're a young adult. How did that affect your friendship?
Well, that was tough because, number one, my mom was very strict. Not every kid came to our home.
Okay.
So we were kind of isolated. And in fact, there was a time my brother and I were talking, and we said, we learned how to create or to form friendships when we were like now already grown, because there was that, you stay at home, you don't go around messing into people's homes. And it has taken a lot of cognitive restructuring in my adult life, to step out, because the way you are conditioned, and unless you reprogram your brain, that's why I'm saying cognitive restructuring, and start removing that from you and try, like, let me put it this way, you start trying to bring novelty to your brain so that it can learn something new where relationship is concerned, where skills are concerned. Because, like, when we get that self-awareness and then we realize there's a problem here, then we are able to do that. But let me say this. When I got married and later I gave my life to the Lord Jesus Christ, I went to theological school. I became a pastor. I started a church with my family. I remember, and by God's grace, I was a very good preacher, a very good pastor. That's back in Kenya. There were times we would go for like Wednesday prayer, and we loved prayer. Our church, we loved prayer. Okay. And then the Holy Spirit would come and everybody's at the altar kneeling and praying and crying. And then it's like I would look inside and see how deep my wounds are. And I would cry until I was half unconscious. My husband and one of the church elders would take over and dismiss, people, and, to go home, and then they would wait for me to come back from wherever I was. But from afar, I would hear the church members saying, Pastor is in the heavenly realm. so much in the spirit. Retro, did they know that I was crying and my wounds are oozing and I am in a messy state?
Mm.
But they thought it was very spiritual.
Mm.
And you know, when you are doing that kind of work, there is a lot of triggers.
Yes.
Women come when they are abused and they want to talk to you. Women come from messy families. Sometimes I would even take them to FIDA for intervention because of, you know, FIDA, Federation
Yes.
of, yeah. So Federation
although
of,
I didn't know it back then. I just
yeah.
found out about it, like, you know, in the last couple of years. Yes.
And then I would have scenarios in the church where there is a lot of domestic violence. You go to a home, they come quickly to get the pastor because the husband is planning to gaslight the house. And, you know, imagine you are not healed and and you are facing all this situation. And this is why I tell the church people, stop hiding in the church and in the Bible. Address your wounds and address your pain so that you can be effective in what you are doing. Sometimes we think we are effective, but maybe we are like 20% effective.
Yes.
Because they hinder our progress.
Yes.
In a big way. We live in a world of internal pain, internal tears. And it is and it is very, very, very destructive. So I did not have any and by the way, now this is my secret. You know, my husband doesn't know how messed up I am. People don't know. So, you know, but he knows I'm very aggressive, you know. So I continued pastoring the church. The church grew. I was the first woman pastor in my denomination. So I also, wounded as I was, I fought in the world of men for the rights and even to open a way for a future door for women to be recognized and ordained. So and now I'm out of. I graduated from theological school, so I am qualified, and I also had my career. But now I was full time in the ministry. Gave myself to the work of the ministry. I told you we pioneered the church with my husband, so we worked hard to see the church grow, buy land to build the church and build the church, which is still there even up to this day. So there was a lot. But I'll be honest with you. I loved God and I was a woman of prayer and fasting. But that does not eradicate your pain. And any woman listening to me, no matter how spiritual you are, you lay your hands on other people, you prophesy, there's still something that you need to address. That pain never goes away. You can't wave the magic word and it goes. It doesn't. And many people live in denial. So God works things in miracle. I'll try to cut as fast as I can because it's a long story. And now I felt like I had a burnout in the ministry. And I told my husband, I feel like I want to go on a sabbatical leave to Europe.
Okay.
And I want to go alone. And he was very generous.
Okay.
He sponsored me. I spent time in Switzerland. And then I spent time in UK.
Okay.
But I did not know that this was my moment.
Okay. Your healing moment.
My healing moment.
Okay.
I was in Geneva. I was in Switzerland. So beautiful. Visited the Swiss Alps. But one time, and I never told my friends this. I was on top of the Swiss Alps, and it is like something opened up. I saw the wounds that I carried. Wounds from my mother and wounds of sexual abuse. I was sexually abused. I had a friend. I thought she was a good friend. And I did not know that she had planned something bad. So she encouraged me, oh, let's go on the other side of the road. They were building a new road closer to my school.
Okay.
And there was some kind of bushes. So we jumped, you know, the way the girls jumped. Okay, let's go. When we reached close to that bush, she said, here she is. And then she ran away.
Oh my goodness.
A gang of boys jumped on me.
Oh.
And you can imagine how terrorized I was.
Yes.
I never told anybody. I did not tell anybody in school. I never told my parents, because who would believe you? You know, people are blamed. You're the one who goes to pray with the boys. So that was a deep wound. So when I'm in my Swiss Alps, I saw it. I never told my friend. I never told anybody in Switzerland.
So a flashback.
Then I wouldn't call it a flashback. It was like an opening. You know, it was like, I don't know how to explain it. To me, it was not a flashback.
Okay.
It was a deeper reality than a flashback.
Okay.
And then I went again, and I was also sexually abused by a relative, and I never told anybody about it, and it also came back. And I'm not so, that is the real sexual abuse. But I also remembered in my career, the office verbal abuse, the demeaning, you know, when you refuse to accept advances from, you know. So what people don't know is that even verbal abuse is also, you know, with that sexual language, it's also
it's sexual abuse. Yes.
And it was like, why is all this happening? Is this my sabbatical? So anyway, from Switzerland, I went to UK, and I spent time in London, visited all the places. I was alone now.
Okay.
In at least Switzerland, I had two friends.
Okay.
But in London, my brother lived in London by then. But I still like I wanted to be more alone, visit history and enjoy my own. And finally, London was too noisy for me. So I moved to Northampton, which is they call it the Midlands.
Okay.
So, and I used to visit places alone, whether castles, you know, I enjoyed myself alone. But this one time I was visiting a certain historical area on my own. And I felt the empowerment of the Holy Spirit. And I had a kind of a voice, or whatever you want to call it, asking me to turn back and look backwards.
Okay.
And I'll never forget. Yes, you were abused. It was not your fault. But forgiveness is your responsibility. And I said, how can I forgive a mother who terrorizes me even up to this day? How can I forgive those people who took my innocence away? But then I got this again, you know, it will crush you because you've carried this pain. And some of these things that now I'm sharing, you know, it is clinical stuff. I did not know until I got to graduate school that, oh my goodness, it was clinical. I got clinical skills I use and I still use with my clients. But when I got introduced to the same skills in graduate school, I said, oh God, you're interesting. And I was reminded this. Forgiveness is not for the benefit of the people who abused you.
Yes.
It is for your own benefit. And you need to forgive.
Mm.
You can never unleash your full potential
Exactly.
when you continue carrying this pain. And then now I'm talking and I said, okay, this was the tough one, Dory.
Mm.
You need to confront the people who abused you.
Your abusers. Okay.
And this is what I said. And I am telling you, I'm talking the way we are talking. I talked.
Mm-hmm.
I said, how can I confront my mother?
Mm.
She will kill you. And I knew this was God speaking to me, because we know the voice of God by the results that you get.
Mm.
And I got this inspiration that when the right time comes to confront your mother, you will know.
Mm.
What about the gang that raped me? I don't even know where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And what about the relative?
Mm-hmm. But did you know the boys though? Did you know who they were?
They were in the same primary school, but now, imagine I am grown, they are grown. Where do you get them to confront them? How do you confront a gang that operated as a gang?
Mm.
And
your friend too.
Yes, and the friend who betrayed me.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There was that betrayal, and then the relative.
Mm-hmm.
And he was gone. And this is why God is also a clinician.
Mm.
Regarding those who sexually abused you, write a letter to them.
Mm.
Pour all your pain, your ordeals, what you have lived with for all these years. And I got peace. I had an open ticket with British Airways. Guess what I did?
You went to Kenya.
I called British Airways and I said, can you put me for the night flight to Nairobi?
Mm.
And I called my husband and I said, Saturday morning, pick me from the airport.
Mm.
Because I felt that is why I went for sabbatical on my own.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it was a 6-month sabbatical.
Oh, that is long. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I went back home. I did not, my husband never knew these stories, by the way. This was my secret. Nobody knew my mess.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 weeks after I got home, one morning, my mother came to my house and she asked me if I would accompany her to go and visit her cousin. They were age mates. And I said, sure, yeah, let's go.
Mm-hmm. We
went to visit her cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a daughter who is also my age mate.
Okay.
So it is like we were 4 women.
Mm-hmm.
And the inspiration that came upon me when I was in Europe came upon me.
Oh, okay.
Jory, I addressed my mother and I said, because my brother was still in England, I said, my brother is not doing very well because of all the beatings and the abuses.
The wounds. Mm-hmm. The trauma.
Drinking a lot, on drugs. Even today, he's still.
Mm.
And then I said, they're looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
I removed all my clothes.
Oh, okay.
And I was naked.
Okay.
They don't know what I am to. And I said, Mommy, I want you to tell me why you abused me. And even up to today, you still abuse me verbally when you feel like. But I want to show you, do you know I have your scars on my body? And I showed her all the scars. And I showed her my thighs and the teeth bites. Because, she could even with teeth and remove the flesh. And I said, why did you do this to me? And her cousin said, please, we've seen it. Put back your clothes. We talk. And my mom is strong-willed. She can never apologize to anybody. She passed away this December, will be 10 years, and she never apologized. She'll try to do some kind acts. And that was her way of apologizing. And I said, just give me one lesson. And she said, because I wanted you to be a responsible woman. And I said, no, that is not the way to empower somebody to be responsible. But let me tell you, she got angry.
Because you exposed her in front of other people too.
But I could not confront her on my own. It could be war. I would lose. She took off and left me. And we had time with her cousin. And she understood and she opened my eyes. And I was able to understand the profound mental health in the family.
Okay.
And I knew it is all right. And when she got home, she told my dad how disrespectful I was. I told her what this and this, and my dad said, that's exactly what you did to her. She went to my brother and complained, and my brother said, you abused all of us, but you abused my sister more than all of us. It hit her hard because for 6 months she did not get out of bed. And she could not talk to me. She could not talk to my husband and my children. But by and by, she was able to start talking to me. But you see, I never stopped loving her because now pouring all that and writing letters, because in psychology, we are taught you when you do that approach, you write and take that letter, you read it every day, facing yourself on the mirror, or read it every day until the day you will read it and there will be no pain. And I have done that with most of my clients, because some people you cannot even, they are too dangerous to go and tell them you did this, or you don't know where they are, or they are deceased. That is how I began my heal. And I realized your mouth is a doctor when you speak out. But you have to speak out in the right time. And I would like to speak to the women who are watching this.
And men too.
And men too, Don't confront when you are not sure that you can handle it. Listen to your intuition. Because it can be dangerous. You can get killed in the process. And that is why I recommend, when it is dangerous, write and keep that letter in a safe place and read it every day. Alternatively, tape yourself and put that taping and listen to it until when you listen to it with no pain. Stand in front of the mirror and talk to yourself. Do not overeat. Do not engage in destructive behaviors, because there are some people who were sexually abused, and instead of hating the act, they'd go out and they are God gifts to every man on the street. That is out of pain. But I can say that God was so gracious to me because I healed myself without a therapist. But after that experience, then I had the desire to come to the United States and study. And so that is how I began my journey. And I came to the US, and I was accepted in school. I did what I wanted to do because I wanted to be well educated in what I went through, because I know there are many people who have gone through that. I have done therapy with men and women who have gone through this. And let me tell you what I realized.
Mm.
Most people, not all, I said most people who are in this career, me and you, we are in, they have a reason.
Mm.
This is not like the way you wake up and say, I want to be an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
There is something that drives us to this career. And this is why we end up being so effective, and glory to the name of God.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in graduate school, I was with people who was doing this as a second degree or a third degree. Some were accountants, others were engineers, but there was pain that was driving them to come and take a second or a third degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I thanked God for my healing, because I saw a lot of people crying.
Mm.
Some of the things we were going through were ripping open wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time I asked the professor, can I share my story? And I shared my story, and
Mm-hmm.
especially the clinical part
Mm-hmm.
that nobody taught me, I shared with them. And I said, look at me, I'm sharing from a point of being healed.
Mm.
Because, and I told them in class, you will never know you are healed until when you tell your story without crying, whether you are a man or a woman, or without feeling sorry for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And
Because and I remember when we had those episodes, especially in group therapies and everything, the professor used to say, remember what Beatrice said.
mm-hmm.
Because at times he would say some people need to go for therapy before they start practicing.
Cool. Mm. And the other thing also about the confronting when you're not ready, it's
Yeah,
not even just the danger only. Is
yeah.
if you're emotional ready, and then it takes you back to that place, and the person you're
Mm-hmm.
confronting does not
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge what they did,
Yeah.
that can take you back, because now you start mourning your trauma again, because this person refuses to acknowledge, does not apologize, and you don't get the apology that you expected. So when you're confronting, you should be ready to accept the apology you'll never get, you know.
And also you need to know this.
Mm-hmm.
You are not seeking for an apology. You are seeking a healing path,
Mm-hmm.
which is more important than anybody's
Apology.
apology.
Mm-hmm.
But if your goal is to get an apology,
Mm.
in most cases you will never get it. You get a lot of justification,
Mm-hmm. Excuses, yeah.
or you get more torture, verbal torture.
Mm-hmm.
So and this is and also, when it comes to confronting, you have to be very careful, because there are some situations that can backfire, and you might end up being wounded.
That's true, because the person can spin it out, and you can look like you're trying to hurt
Yeah,
them, especially if they're a big shot, you're trying to be after money.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it can actually backfire. That's true.
Yeah, and this is why I encourage people, look for somebody that you can work with, who will understand your pain, who will not try to rationalize your pain, or like minimize your pain.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, many times, especially women, when they are wounded, they go opening everywhere.
Mm.
And they go to this prayer meeting, to this and this. I remember one time I talked to some women who used to, to hold women conferences. And I would go home heartbroken. And I said, why do you rip off these wounds and they start oozing and you don't heal?
Mm.
And I said, sometimes these women fall down and you think they are falling down under the power of the Holy Spirit, but they are falling down because of the heavy, heavy weight of pain that they are.
Mm. Now let's go back a little bit, and we'll still talk about your marriage, because I know I asked your question and then we didn't go back to that. But You say that your cousin enlightened you because she was able to talk to you about your family history. So there was a
No,
family
she's not
history.
my cousin. She's my mom's
Oh, your
cousin. They
mom's
are age
cousin.
mate. Yeah.
Okay. Your
And,
mom's cousin.
yes. And also this,
Hmm.
I knew there was something that is not right. I
Okay.
did not have a name. I did not know what to call it, but I knew there is something that is not right. And now that I talk with my dad freely,
Hmm.
he knows there is. And he tells me that because they knew each other since they were kids.
Mm, okay. And so
Yeah.
then your cousin was able to tell you maybe
Her
examples of
cousin,
yeah,
my
I mean,
mother.
yes, her cousin was
Yeah.
able to give you maybe examples of other people in the family who had similar symptoms. But was this a secret though?
You know, people don't talk about mental health.
Yeah.
And even right now, you know, these things goes even into generations. I don't think I've heard anybody talking about it, but
Hmm.
I know it with now the experiences. I have my own experiences and the clinical experiences.
Hmm.
It is profound.
It is. And one thing I usually say is, especially for Christians, we tend to say that there's a generational curse and this and that. But then you find that people who are non-Christian, who don't even think that there's a God who exists, but they recognize that there's been a pattern in the family and they want to break the pattern and they seek the help that
Yeah.
they need. And then, they get the help and then they're free. When we continue to say it's a curse and we are trying to pray it out, instead of seeking the help that we need. Not to say that God cannot heal. Of course God can heal and God heals all the time, but sometimes we need the help of a professional. Just like when you have cancer, most of us would not sit at home and just try to pray the cancer away. We would go and get chemo or radiation or surgery or whatever it is to make sure that the cancer is gone. And the same thing applies to mental health. But I find that in our society, generally in every society, it's just that the degree differs. When it
Yeah.
comes to mental health, we treat it very differently and we don't take it as an illness. We take it as a curse or somebody who is weak. Sometimes I've had people say that that person is weak. They can't deal. You can't deal with life, when it's actually mental illness.
To be honest with you, my experience in the mental health field
Mm-hmm.
is not even with Kenyans.
Mm-hmm.
It is with the Americans.
Mm-hmm. Same here, actually. Mostly Americans, yes.
Yeah. And let me tell you, a human being is a human being, whether
Mm-hmm.
white or black or green or yellow.
Yes.
They have struggles like our people. They have denials,
Mm-hmm.
even when it is running through the family.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of hard work building a therapeutic alliance
Mm.
so that you can be able to get to the root cause of the problem and start helping somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not just a Kenyan thing.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just at a higher degree because we're
Yes.
just beginning to accept mental
Yes.
health therapy. Yes,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
So, and I'm sure you can even go back to the history of our country. I remember when I was young, there was a woman who was a teacher, and her husband just removed her eyes and she became
Mm.
bride forever. No, that story, it's like nobody was talking about mental health
Mm-hmm.
because somebody normal cannot just wake up and remove your eyes.
Mm.
There is a trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And also we also need to do a good job in stopping to justify the abusers, whether they are
Mm.
parents, siblings, or
Yes.
colleagues, or even spouses. We need to quit over explaining,
Mm-hmm.
justifying, spiritualizing, because
Yeah.
when we do that, we are hurting ourselves. I remember one time talking to a woman who was in her in her younger years,
Mm.
she was, sexually terrorized, abused. And I remember one time the husband confided with me, and now they are grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
The husband said it happened even before I knew her, even before I started dating her. But do you know she still wakes up in the middle of the night crying with a lot of pain?
Mm.
And I remember talking to her one time, and we were just sharing, and she said, the people who want to open their mouths and go
Mm.
talking about I was abused, this and this, they
Mm.
can do that, but not me.
But meanwhile, you're living with the pain.
And I said, what do you want to do with your pain? She said, I'll die with it. And psychologists and mental health professionals, if they want to write my story, they can write in their books. That arrogance. So that tells you she is still stuck in anger.
Mm-hmm.
She has never processed even an inch of that pain.
But is that also pride to some extent because you want to maintain an image? Especially because we come from a culture where the family name was a big deal, right? When I remember when girls got pregnant and if you lived in Nairobi, you would be taken to the village to have the baby and then you come back. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that that has to do with pride also and the culture?
I think that everybody in her village knew what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, because it produced a child.
Ah.
And so this is how I look into it, Dory.
Mm-hmm.
Unprocessed pain, shame attached to that,
Shame is a bad thing. Mm-hmm.
and then it punches holes into a person's self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you this, if I can go backward a little bit. When you've been abused, sometimes that pain gives you a kind of a negative boldness to confront. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like when I was in school, nobody would fight me small as I am, even the boys. And you know why I was fighting everybody? Because there is this built anger, and
Mm-hmm.
anger is
Mm-hmm.
power, anger is strength. But now it is negative strength, it is destructive strength.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be also lack of trust, because when you are violated, you're not able to trust anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be a bunch of
Right.
many things,
Mm-hmm.
but again, a person has to reach to a point where they want to make their own decision. I'm tired of living this way,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to start working on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when you work on yourself, remember this: there is no shame when
Mm-hmm.
you work on yourself and you start sharing your story with people.
Yes.
Your story is more clinical than even all the classes you attended in graduate school,
That's true.
because your story demonstrates to people that it is doable. You can heal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can turn your pain into gain by helping other people.
Now, let me ask you something. As you started sharing your story and your experiences, did you get any backlash from family members who felt like you were shaming the family?
No, but me, I have always been an outspoken kid. I am bold. I don't care. So I don't
Okay.
care what they think or say about me. It's my journey, and it is a journey of empowering people. So those who want to still cover their wounds and paint this picture that they are a very good family,
Mm-hmm.
let them go ahead and do that. God has given me a gift of boldness, and I want to execute it.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you another question before we come to the marriage, because I think that that's very important.
Yeah.
Your dad, did you ever feel any resentment towards your dad for quote unquote not protecting you? Did you ever think or feel that your dad could have done more to protect you?
No, because my mom terrorized everybody.
Okay, I get you.
And I was my daddy's girl. My daddy who used to sit me on his lap and teach me how to read
Mm-hmm.
stories for me, read newspapers for me, do the password with me.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, I am a grown woman, a grandmother, and I'm still my daddy's girl.
Good, 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 good. Okay. Yes, because I do know that that also becomes another um, um, trauma for a lot of people who go through abuse, that especially when they feel that they were left and nobody protected them. So that's why I asked that question. Now now going back a little bit, because now you're a healed Beatrice, but then how did you present as Mrs. Ndura? How did you present from a trauma perspective, right? And how did you work through those issues?
Well, you know, I was a happy girl. I loved life.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, my husband and I met through mutual friends when we were drinking.
Okay.
And I'm always, I don't know, I don't care. And he fell in love with me. And I asked him, do you know what kind of a woman I am? Do you, and he said, you know what? You are a nice girl. I think you just want to make yourself crazy, but
Mm.
you are a nice girl. And, uh, and we started dating, but let me tell you, we started fighting when we were dating.
Mm.
So, because all this, I'm strong willed even without the abuse. But now I have all these things. And I'm not telling him my story. I never told him because, again, it was a guarded secret
Mm-hmm.
until my sabbatical.
Mm.
And so, when we got married, it's like we were clashing a lot.
Mm.
Issues were bothering me. And I used to smoke
Okay.
because, that smoking, doing it was getting a lot of steam out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And one time he said, did you smoke? I said, what do you mean? Drinking was not a problem,
Mm-hmm.
but that thing haunted me. And I came one time and I said, I want to make a confession. I smoke. And
Mm.
I,
So you're doing it secretly. Mm.
and I started smoking when I was in high school.
Mm.
And in the office, I have an ashtray, and the messenger who cleans the office has to clean my ashtray the first thing in the morning.
Mm.
And then he asked me, do you smoke in the house? I said, no. I go way out, like I'm taking a walk in the
Mm-hmm.
bush areas, and that's where I smoke when I'm not in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you keep your cigarettes? In this house. He said, can you show me? I went and showed him where my cigarettes were.
Mm.
And he asked me, have you ever tried to stop smoking? I said, no. Why? Because I didn't want to. He went and got an exercise book. And he told me,
That's a notebook for those who don't know what an
yeah,
exercise is.
yeah, there were not those flashy notebooks by then.
Yes. Yeah.
And then he said, every time you smoke, just write the date and how many you smoked.
Mm.
No quarrel, no fight. After I was given that notebook, I never touched a cigarette again
Mm.
in my life.
Mm.
The urge, just disappeared.
Went. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the story is big. I cannot finish all of it, Dory. I'm just trying
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Yes, yes. But then at least you were able to identify the fact that maybe some of those fights came from a place of being uh, deeply wounded and being in trauma
Yes.
and then dealing with them.
Yeah, because like every time we had an argument, we would fight, and then
Physical fighting, that's what you mean?
yeah, and then
Oh.
I would run and hide in the bedroom. He would break the door and come and pull me out under the bed. And my mother-in-law loved me so much, and so I went to report him to the mother that my mother-in-law was a wise woman. Of course, she knew. But I told her, he beats me. He breaks the bedroom door. He has to get a carpenter all the time. He pulls me from under the bed. And because I told him I'm going to report you, and he begged me not to go, and I went. My mother told me, go back. In 2 days I'll come. She loved me so much until her death. And after 2 days, the gentleman comes home in the evening. The mother is there, and I think he figured out maybe I was reported. And so me, after dinner, I went to bed, and my husband said, I think we need to go to bed. And my mother-in-law called me. And this is what she told him. And she knew I'm the bad one, but I want women to hear this, that when you get a good mother-in-law, is a well of healing. And it taught me how to be a good mother-in-law. She told her son, your wife came and she told me everything, how you beat her, you break the door, you get her under the bed, under the bed. But this is what I want to tell you. When I'm still alive, even when I die, never beat her. What about if you break her neck or kill her? If you're not happy with her, come home and talk to me. And that was the end of our battles. But my mother-in-law was not a stupid woman. She knew. But today I am a mother-in-law, and I handle my daughter-in-laws the way my mother-in-law taught me. She was the love of my life. When she died, I was here on my student visa, and my family was here. I risked my student visa to go and bury her and eulogize her. My flight from Newark, New Jersey, to Amsterdam, to Nairobi was all tears. And I was not in good health either. I left my husband and our 2 sons, and they said, what about if you go and the embassy will not renew your student visa? I said, I'll live with it for the rest of my life. And she used to call me her Ruth, and I used to call her my Naomi. That's the love affair we had. And that love, she was able to nurture me. She was not educated like my mother, but she had deep, deep wisdom. She taught me how to be a mother-in-law. She taught me how to be a woman who doesn't go writing fires. And let me tell you, getting that student visa renewal, and I went just for a week because the following Monday I was going to present my thesis proposal. I saw the miracle of God the way I was given that my visa was renewed. And when I came back and hit New Jersey, because my husband was working and my eldest son was now able to drive, and I saw my children, and they were on phone with the father, and he said, that's you, and you're here. Because people knew, all my brother-in-laws and sisters-in-laws tried to beg me, please don't come. What if they don't renew your visa? And some things are so important. For a mother who loved me like her daughter, who took sides with me, not with her son. And that is memorable. I cherish that woman. And even a lot of things that I do, because you see, my mother was also I am a go-getter like my mother. I like education like my mother. I like things. I am more of my mother, only that by God's grace, I did not inherit that component of mental health. But Then my mother-in-law complimented the other side that I was not able to get. And we each other so dearly. She used to call me her Ruth, and I used to call her my Naomi.
That's a beautiful, you have a beautiful, beautiful story of trauma and a lot of hardship, but of healing. And, you know, the hope that you can have gone through a lot of trauma, but you come out beautiful, you know. So now, as we wind down, because we are already past 1 hour, but as we wind down, can you briefly touch on the limiting beliefs that you think hinder us from getting the help we need, both culturally and religiously?
You know, number one, I think we Kenyans, if we go back to our history, the Africans, the women, and also let me say this also, even here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, one time my friend Carol Maha of Many Waters invited me to do a conference with her, and we were addressing this. The theme was they told their stories, women telling their stories. So it was a conference where women were opening up and sharing their stories. Mm-hmm. And you know, in that kind of sharing, there is a lot of pain and a lot of crying. Mm-hmm. And 2 days after that, I invited her in my office, and I said, "Why don't you visit me in my office, and then we go out for lunch?" And we started talking about the Pennsylvania Dutch background, how women were each other's therapists. They used to heal each other. Those were the days when they would gather together and sew the quilts. Nowadays, made by machines. And when they were sewing together, because it was one big one and they are all sewing, they would pour their hearts to each other. They would read to each other. They would cry with each other. They would cry, encourage each other. There was that honesty and openness and confidentiality. And that is how women were healing women. And but now with the technology and the law reversals and all those kind of things, it is something that has disappeared. And if it is there, it's just maybe a little bit. And as we were sharing, I told her, I come from the same kind of a community. Women used to go to the river together. They used to go pick firewood together. They used to go to the market together. When there is a newborn baby, they would come and help the mother together, all of them. And these women were each other's therapists because they would pour their problems with their husbands, with their children to each other. They would listen, heal each other, and that's why the women stood strong and together. But now the world has changed. Women are busy with their careers. They left villages and went to the cities. Some of us left and we came here. And there is that vacuum because we have abandoned therapy that has been intertwined in our generations forever, whether it is here in the Pennsylvania Dutch, in Lancaster, where I live, or whether it is in Kenya, where you and me come from. And now it has been replaced with unhealthy competition, jealousy, gossips, lack of trust. And the risk can go on. So instead of healing each other, we gang toward each other. And I am praying that women, we can look back and recapture that, because we, with God on our side and knowing that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, we can capture that, where we can have small spots of women here and there who work together, wipe together, pray for the children, share their discouragement, and it will not go outside of their circles. So now that is missing. And also in our community, because that thing was there, issues were addressed. They were not put under the carpet in those days. In my community, there were women elders who were respected because they used to talk to the younger generation and even talk to the women as they grow. And also we need something like that, not competition, not over spiritualizing everything. And when we do that, we will be able.
One thing that I found out, because I was looking into EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. It's a way of giving therapy where it's, by sounds like tapping and eye movements and all that stuff. And in reading about EMDR, because I was curious, I was like, wow, because people who go through EMDR say that it's the best. Like they say it's so easy, and especially for the therapist, because the therapist does less talking. It's the person who does more of the talking. And I read somewhere where they were actually saying that that's how Africans in the olden days used to heal themselves, because they would gather, like if you read all the stories like the concubine, Things Fall Apart, they always talk about the evening dance when
Yes.
people would gather and they would, somebody would be beating the drums and they would dance to the rhythm of the drums. And that is kind of where EMDR also gets that tapping and sound, repetitive sound way of healing. And because people would gather and dance and listen to the drums and the beats were rhythmic and all that stuff, that was also a form of therapy, and it helped people heal. So it is true that those ancient, or we might say backward, ways of doing things that we didn't think about were actually very organic ways of getting therapy that we didn't even think about, and are not there anymore today.
And let me say this, Dory. We have abandoned those issues. We became westernized, and we thought our culture and therapeutic interventions were backwards. But guess what? The researchers here and across the world, Europe, name it, they come to our continent and research on our skills, go write books and transform them into their own. And yet we abandon them because we think they are primitive, they are backwards. I think for me, I am an advocate as an African woman that we need to start rising up and embracing who we are, and embracing our culture, and embracing interventions that were helpful. They weren't. Why not? They are not demonic. And I think the other thing is we have also spiritualized everything. And we forget that even there is a lot of cultural stuff in the Bible. We, the Jewish, all the people that we interact with in the Bible. I think we need to reach a point where we know that every group of people is uniquely blessed by God with unique skills. How do we use those skills? How are we healing each other with those skills? The other thing that is working for us, and I know me and you, we love the Lord, but we can have the boldness to say this. It is when we put spiritual wings on every bird. When we put spiritual wings on every bird, we mess up. We cannot spiritualize everything.
I agree.
There is the praise of the scriptures. There is the praise of our common sense. That's why God has given us a brain. And there is the praise of learning from others, because shared experiences is very empowering. The other thing is, we are not saying that there are no demons, but we cannot label people struggling with bipolar, struggling with PTSD, struggling with all those anxiety. We cannot label them as having demons. What about the chemical imbalances in the brain?
Yes.
What about the traumas of those who went into the war and they were exposed to killing and shooting? Are they demon possessed?
Thank you so much, Beatrice, for your wealth of wisdom and for sharing your story, which is deeply personal. I am very honored that you came and shared your story with us. Can you give us your last parting shot? What is your parting shot? What do you want to leave us with?
Women, we are unique. And when we start supporting each other the way women in the Bible supported each other, the women who walked with Jesus. So instead of demonizing women, let us look into their strengths. You know, we are able to get along well with each other when I understand and you understand my strength. Because when we balance our strength and our weaknesses, we will not fight each other. We will know that we are all human beings. The other thing is, it's good to love the Lord with a passion, because Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior and we love him. But
Yes.
don't over spiritualize. Don't hide in spirituality that you don't address your pain. And the other thing is, the Bible says, study to make yourself approved, a workmanship that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word.
Yes.
Study. The Bible addresses everything from spirituality to psychology. If we study it intentionally and with a clear mind, we will be able to heal ourselves and to heal others. And also, when we are struggling with the issues, let us work, because if I never worked on my issues, I would not be able to work with the people that I work with today. Because what we do when we don't work on our issues and we want to be the first people to talk and give counsel and lay hands and push them and they fall down, we are doing transference of what we have. But when we heal ourselves and ground ourselves in God, we will be doing, when we do transference, it is the right thing, the right spirit, the right healing, the right encouragement. Then finally, do not be ashamed of your story. It has shaped you to be the woman or the man that you are. It has empowered you. It has given you life skills and all skills that you can imagine. And finally, work with people who will empower you to be the best version of yourself. Mental health matters. Mental health is real. Addressing it, it's important. Don't be ashamed. When people have mental health, it's just like people have diabetes, people have high blood pressure.
Yes.
People have a heart problem. They are not ashamed. Why are we ashamed of addressing or talking about our mental health? And this is our headquarters. When their headquarters is not operating in the right way, then there is something wrong. And the last tip is, be intentional in empowering your mental health. That is brain health. Our brain will be kind to us when we bring novelty to it on a daily basis. What do I mean by novelty? Our brain thrives in newness. Give it newness every day.
Yes.
Because it becomes vibrant and start cleansing all the toxicity within its system. So the one way of bringing novelty to your brain is reading.
I agree.
Reading takes you to places. The brain becomes happy even when you are reading your Bible. I know there is the praise of watching a YouTube or like this one we are doing, or listening to an audio podcast, but there is also the space for reading. And the more you read, the more novelty you bring to your brain, the more you renew it, the more you strengthen it, the more you prevent mental decline, and the more you heal yourself.
Thank you so much, Beatrice, for being with us. And with that, we will come to an end. Thank you so much for your wisdom and for taking time to speak to us. Until next time, this is Dolly Ochola from Kavaya's Daughter Speaks.
Thank you.